This is Dan Koss from the ADR office. As you just heard, this will be recorded so that if you happen to have staff who couldn't make it because of vacation schedules or something, they can take a look at this recording and get themselves oriented, and we'll have this saved up for you so that you can share that with them.
Okay, we're on this one.
Okay, I'm going to ask that if you are on a phone line that you mute that phone line unless you have a question. Again, that'll help with the quality of the recording. So many thanks to everyone for making the time to join us. We are excited to launch the new Caseload Manager database, and Claire and I are on the home stretch here. You're one of the last training groups that we've got, and we've just been hearing very positive and encouraging feedback from folks. So while this is a significant change, we want to make sure that we can tell you about the capabilities of the system and walk you through some very basic pieces, entering cases, finding mediators, that sort of thing. Just give you a basic orientation to the system and what it can do. And then we're going to ask that you lean on Will and on Nancy and Donna, respectively, to give you guidance on how to implement this locally. One of the great things about this system is that it allows for statewide consistency while also allowing for local centers to make decisions about how they want to use the system and process cases. So it's to us, it's the best of both worlds. So one thing that would help is if you have questions, please unmute your phone, interrupt us, ask us. If it's easier for you to use the chat function on the bottom of the screen, go ahead and use that too. That's worked for some groups as well, whatever you're more comfortable with. So just a quick story is that, we've been training a bunch of people, including last week we trained up all the super users, and they spent a couple days here. And on the first day, we had folks who were really kind of, gnashing their teeth and squinting at the screen, having trouble finding what they were looking for. But by the beginning of the second day, I saw a very different look on people's faces. They were clicking through the application, knowing exactly where to go, and there was no consternation or worry. So it may take you a day, it may take you a week or a month to figure it out. We're confident that the system is really pretty intuitive and you'll find what you need with some repetition. So please be patient with yourselves as you figure it out. Be patient with your colleagues and know that we're here to support you as you make this transition to the new database. So to jump right in, I'm gonna pass it off to Claire. Claire Fowler works for Mediate.com, and Claire has helped many community mediation centers find a way to kind of get oriented and begin with the program, as well as really optimize the program. So she'll be focusing on a basic orientation today, and she'll be a resource that your super user will be working with over the years to make this as ideal a fit for your center as we can. So, Claire?
All right, thank you. And so let's go ahead and get started. I'll do a quick little video. Hello. So again, for those of you that are sharing your videos, wonderful. But after this, I think you probably don't need to. And also, as Dan said, why don't you go ahead and mute your microphones? That would be great. And also, as he said, please jump in and interrupt if at any point I haven't explained something well. So, or if you just have questions about how this will apply for your center. Okay, so that's enough of my face and video, and let's get going. So a tiny bit of background at this point. I think everybody knows what Caseload Manager is. It's a system for managing cases that live in the cloud. It can also manage your staff, your calendar, your documents, and just all of the day-to-day case stuff. What's nice is that everybody has access to real-time information, meaning somebody in one county updates somebody's phone number and it's instantly available to everyone else, which is great, which makes it really convenient. It also means that you can customize it for each center as well as for each person, which we'll look at as soon as we log in. And finally, it can grow with you. So right now you might think you have it all set up for how it matches your system now, but let's say a year from now you get this incredible grant to manage tons of foreclosures, or you add a new peer mediation program, or whatever it is. Now your system can grow and change with you to accommodate new departments, okay? So that's what's fun about it. All right, so our training today is just going to be that introduction stuff. So just the foundational stuff, but to be honest, this is 99% of what you really need to use the system. All the other stuff is really the bells and whistles, which are great for some offices and just a distraction for others. So today, I keep trying to sip coffee in between breaths, sorry. So today we're just looking at getting started and staff setup. Your super users have already been doing the configuration, which is great. Thank you, super users. As far as the other ones, optimization and advanced features, again, that's on a case-by-case basis. Some people will want to use them and some people won't. So depending on what your super users tell you, we might be meeting again for some additional trainings, such as work groups and deadlines. All right, going on. Ta-da! Introduction. Number 1, login. So when you visit our website, which I hope you will, we have some pretty good help topics and whatnot, you'll see a lot of login screens. Ignore those. Do not click those links. Those are not what you want. Instead, you all are special. So you get your own unique New York login. That's kind of a tongue twister, but I made it through. So when you log in, it will take you to your special New York systems. So that's why when you get this login in your email, make sure you save it, bookmark it somewhere. Your user ID and password will be sent to you. User ID is your email. I'm assuming you can remember that. Your password, however, was randomly created. So you might want to come up with a password that's easier for you to remember. And then as soon as you log in, you will see the Caseload Manager home screen, which is divided into 5 hubs, which look like this. Calendar, activities, reports, and mail along the top there, and then cases down at the bottom. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump in and go ahead and add a case. So let's go to a live version. Here we are.
Claire, while you're bringing that up, quick question: have super users already sent you all your IDs and invited you into the system? Nancy or Donna, have you done that? Not yet? Okay. So if you're waiting on that, if you have no idea, you haven't logged into the system yet, check with your super user, Will or Donna or Nancy, to make sure that they're the ones that are going to trigger your invitation into the system.
Great, thank you. All right, so as I mentioned, there are 5 main hubs. Calendar, activities, reports, and mail are along the top there. And we will mostly be working in the Cases Center that's down at the bottom. I also mentioned that I'm going to show you how to change your password. So we will begin in the upper right by clicking on Edit and then Staff. Okay, Edit and then Staff. This brings up a new window. Quick note about new windows. Some browsers like to play hide and seek with them. It's really frustrating. So they'll bring it up behind the current window, or it will be minimized, or it will be in another tab. Very frustrating. So that's part of your homework. When you first log in, check to see what happens with your browser when you open one of these new windows. And I would probably change the default settings so that it opens just like this. Current, active, new window. Okay. So anyway, so you are editing your staff record. So I'm just going to create a new staff person to play with. So I'm going to add a volunteer. Let's have their name be Vernon, our volunteer. Okay. VV, those initials are very important. This is what lets people know what you have been doing in the system, how active you've been, and if they have any questions, like if they need to follow up on a phone call and ask you some more information, they can do that by viewing your initials. Login is your email. Okay. Password, minimum 6 letters and numbers. I wouldn't use too many special characters. That messes up some browsers. But you still want to make sure it's a pretty strong a pretty strong password that you're protecting, that you're changing frequently. Just, you know, as a reminder, you've got all of your coworkers' home information in here. You have participants' confidential information. So we really do want to protect this, you know. If you've logged in on a laptop, make sure that that laptop is password protected in case you ever leave it at Starbucks or something, okay? So just a reminder, make sure you keep this password safe. Next, so when you log in, here's where you can update your email address and phone number, all right? And here's where you can put any notes about yourself. So I would like to begin mediating divorce disputes, for instance. Confidential notes, so these are what the admins can make about the staff. Has taken divorce training, ready to observe, for instance. Or really likes chocolate, you know, all the important stuff. That's where you're going to put this information. Address, okay, so here's where you're going to put your mailing address. Scrolling down here, this is where they'll put your registration number, basic mediation training, apprenticeship phase, and so on. Here's also where you can put in your demographic information, as well as languages you can speak and counties that you're available, all right? So we will add that record. Great. And I'm going to clear the filter so I can now see, great, there's my volunteer down at the bottom, Vernon the volunteer. Okay, so what I just did was I updated a staff record, and now I'm going to practice adding a case. Let's see here. Actually, I'm going to pause and check one thing.
Claire,
Yeah, go ahead.
someone's asking for you to slow it down a bit.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, people in New York usually ask me to talk faster, so that's just fine. I have no problem slowing down. Okay. So now we are going to add a case. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom right and click on Add New Case. You see that? Okay, so I click Add Case and a new window pops open. Now this window is going to ask me a couple of questions. First, it's saying, what's the process? So I'm going to assume that this is a mediated case, okay? So I will hop down here and click Mediation. Next, it says, what's the case type? Now, my understanding is that you have a variety of different cases you handle. Some are case managed and some are finite cases that you'll be entering the information for after it's closed, okay? So I'm going to enter one of those today, a small claim, and this is just for demo purposes. So I know that every center is going to have their own process and their own workflow, but you know, I have to start somewhere to show you the features. So this is where I'm going to be starting today. Okay. So I click on small claim, and then I click set, and now it's going to take me to the case intake screen. So a variety of these fields have been added for the state system, and then you can also add in your own unique fields for your center. I'm going to start here in the upper left where it says new. So this means that as soon as I add this case, it's going to assign a new number to this case, okay? And what's nice about that is knowing that the system is going to be keeping unique numbers going on in the background so that you don't ever have to worry about having the same case ID as somebody else. Now, for the most part, I think that's probably the case ID you're going to use. However, I know that there are certain times that there's other numbers that you have to add about a case, such as a court number or a docket number, okay? Something like that. So here's where you can manually enter in additional information. You can also enter in a case name if that's useful for you. All right, especially in a divorce case, for instance, that case name might be very helpful. Scrolling down here, a lot of this should look familiar, just maybe in a different order and under different names, but we have our referral sources. Here's where we select the county, identify the relationship, and if you choose to use these pending fields, they have been added for you here. The return date, the docket number, client follow-up, etc. So not required at this point, but available for you if that's helpful for your office. We're going to scroll down a little more. So now I'm in the contact section on the left. So a couple things to point out about these fields. Number one, here we go. So if you've worked with somebody before, then their name is going to be on file. So you click on the drop down and select their name. If it's a new person, then you can enter their name here. We're just entering very basic information right now, and we'll come back in a moment once we have gathered more detailed demographic information. All right, so I'm scrolling down a little bit more. Again, interrupt me if you have any questions or if you want me to spend more time on something. And I want you to know that this system grows with you. So you will always have a blank space to enter more party information. In other words, right now we're only seeing places for 2 people, but as soon as I hit save, the space will pop open for a 3rd. If I fill that out, space will pop open for a 4th, and so on. So even if you have a multi-party facilitation with hundreds of people in it, don't worry, the system will continue to grow with you. Down here we have our staff. Here's our case developer. So right now I'm going to assign Will as the developer for this case, meaning he's the one that conducted the initial intake and opened up the case. Again, some of the preferences on this will probably change center by center. And now I have not yet assigned a mediator, meaning that none of the mediators or volunteers know that this case exists. If at some point you choose to add your mediators, then they will know that this case exists as soon as I assign them to this case, all right? So now Vernon will see this case the next time he logs in. There's a lot of R's in that name, huh? Vernon. Guess I could have spelled that better, sorry. Okay. So now when Vernon logs in, you can, of course, you can completely customize the defaults and the access levels, but right now, Vernon will see this information if he logs in. But just one more note about this, then I promise I'll move on. Even if you don't give your mediators access, it's still important to assign them to cases and to calendar items, because then you can contact them from this case. So I could send them a quick email saying, hey, time has changed, or the party is going to be late, whatever. And also what's great about this is then at the end of the year, I can really quickly see what cases my mediators have been involved in, what volunteer activities they've been doing, and maybe send them a quick Christmas card of appreciation or happy holidays gift card saying thank you for your 120 hours of service, right? But you can't get that data out of the program unless you're putting the data in first. So that's my little spiel for make sure that you're assigning your mediators to their cases and their activities. All right, I promise I'll move on. So letting that go, I'm hopping over to the upper right, and here we have more detailed case information. So first, case notes. Now, I know what you're thinking. This doesn't really apply if this is a small claims case, but I know, I'm just trying to point out the different features here. So, notes, we'll say this is a divorce case. Teen also seeking emancipation. Status. This is something that can also be changed center by center. So as time goes on, if you want to add a status that's more appropriate for your center, go ahead, contact your super user, and that's how they can make those changes. So if you're seeing something that's really missing, like the status is it's in the intake stage, or invoice has been sent, awaiting evaluation, something like that. Okay, so you can customize this field and a lot of other fields. Next, waiting for. Now, some places will use this for your next action item. Some people will just use this for their own personal checklist. And some people use this as a note to other co-mediators so they know what's going on and what stage the case is at. So initiating party has replied, waiting on confidentiality. Okay, something like that. All right, so scrolling down here, we've got our types. So notice that small claims type and mediation process were pulled into the screen from that initial screen where I indicated them. So that's nice, that information stayed with us. Then we also have case nature and case outcome. Dan, do you want to jump in and explain these?
Yeah, I will. Thank you. So just so folks know, hopefully those names, case type, case nature, process, and outcome, hopefully those are all familiar to you. But I did want to share, just so folks were aware of some of the changes that have happened to those fields. So if you look at case type, for instance, you'll notice that there are a few changes. Maybe the peer mediation one might affect folks up at Mediation Matters, but essentially you'll see ag credit and ag non-credit have disappeared. Both of you occasionally have an ag credit case, and I'll show you how to enter that in a sec. Peer mediation is also gone as a case type. So let me explain what we would like you to do with those situations. If you have peer mediation cases, like I know you do in Schenectady and likely will in Albany as well, that there we'd like you to enter youth as the case type, and then just enter the same nature as you normally would. And then if you take a look for process, we have peer mediation now as a process. It's a different kind of mediation than a regular mediation. And so if you're doing any data entry and supporting the peer mediation program, remember it's youth for case type, peer mediation for process. Outcomes are all the same. There are other new processes listed, and Claire's got that drop down showing on the screen. Now we have restorative practice on there, we have settlement conference, fair hearings, conflict coaching, several different things. We'll have those all defined in a forthcoming revision to the data chapter of the program manual. If you used to do something and the case type was DSS conciliation, that case type is also gone, and we're asking folks to use public benefits and fair hearing as the process. So those are some small minor changes to those categories, but those categories don't change very often other than once every few years, so I wanted to highlight those. So let's go back, if we can, Claire. We'll call this one the small claims case, and we can choose a process of mediation for it. The other thing that's changed, or there's a new field here, it's called secondary nature. And secondary nature might be helpful in two situations. One, if you enter custody visitation cases, and I know that's part of both of your caseloads, you can imagine there's a situation where in the past you were doing a parenting issues case, and then the nature, you had to choose one. And maybe you chose visitation original because they were talking about a parenting plan schedule. But they were also going to talk about support, or they were also going to talk about custody original, but you had to choose one. So secondary nature is where you can add an additional nature to it. The other type of situation that might help is when two people see the dispute pretty differently. So for instance, you are in small claims court, you have a landlord-tenant case, and the landlord is talking about evicting someone because of non-payment of rent. Well, so for that person, it's about non-payment of rent, but for the tenant, they might feel like they've been harassed and they want the phone calls and knocking on the door at 10 o'clock at night to stop. And so then, you have two people who see the situation pretty differently. So you could enter it as housing, non-payment of rent, and then you could also then have another nature as harassment, for example. So that's an optional field. It's not required, but it does give you a little more chance to share information. I'm going to highlight two last fields and then I'll turn it back to Claire. If you do have a NISAMP case, enter it as the case type that it normally might be. It might be a small claims matter, large claims, could be a family issue. But when you get to saying there's that NISAMP field, and what you'll notice is the default is no, because obviously most of our cases aren't NISAMP cases. But if you are doing an ag mediation case, you can there choose credit or non-credit. Well, we could choose credit for this one. Let's imagine it's a small claims matter that's a credit case. The other field that I just want to highlight is the New York City Criminal Code. It's back just under the secondary nature. Just know that that is not required for you. That is just for New York City programs. It's an important part of their funding, so we made sure it was actually in everyone's database. So let me pause. That's a lot of changes and a lot of fields that I just highlighted. You can use the chat or you can unmute yourself. Any questions about any of those changes? Any questions on anything we've covered so far? No? The post-lunch lull? All right, please feel free to chime in with any thoughts along the way. And Claire, I'll let you take it from here.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to keep scrolling down here and I'm going to indicate the number of sessions. So I'll say one session that lasted 45 minutes. Then I'm going to add my case. Okay, so I just did a basic intake. Now, if this were a case managed case, I'd probably come back at some point, start adding activities like phone calls and whatnot, and I'd add some calendar items as I began scheduling mediation sessions. But for now, I'm actually ready to go back in and close this case. So to do that, I want to make sure that I've captured the demographic information for my participant. I'm going to click on Jane Doe. I'll make sure that I have her address entered, her email, phone number, any important notes. Scrolling down more, you'll notice that this is where we have the demographic information. For date of birth, we really just want to keep track of somebody's age. So the month and the date are less important. You can just put January 1 if you don't know that information, and then indicate the year that they were born. Now the default for these is did not ask, but the assumption is that you are going to be going through and asking this question and getting this information as often as possible. So these should all look fairly familiar. Employment, household income, veteran status, etc. There's one thing that's unique down at the bottom. So notice here where it says associated cases. So what's nice about this is that now we can see all of the cases that a person is involved in. So perhaps it's a frequent flyer, someone that uses your mediation office pretty often. Then you can look in here very quickly and understand what has their relationship been with your office. Or if it's an attorney, maybe you want to do a conflict check. Maybe you want to quickly look at the status of all of those cases and just find out if they're currently actively involved in any other cases. And then finally, notice that this is a hyperlink, so it's really easy to click back and forth from their participant record and view all of their all of their cases just to quickly understand what they have been doing in those cases. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I open up the participant record and I just add all of the demographic information that I have. So I hit update, I close, and so now I'm ready to close this case. I added my New York information, I added my participant demographic information. So now I indicate the date that it was closed. And in the upper left here, if you'll notice this little toggle button where it says case open and case closed, I'm now going to toggle it to say case closed. Then I will hit update case, but it says, hey, you forgot to fill stuff out, Claire. So I'm going to go back in and fill out nature, outcome, and individual served. All right, nature, outcome, and individual served. We'll say that there were 5 individuals, including 3 children. All right, so now let's see if I've remembered everything. I will hit update case, and good. So now it's letting me know that I have filled out all of the fields that are required for the New York State reports. There might be additional fields that are important for your office to make sure that you have filled out. But as far as the New York centers, as far as for the New York reporting, it's only going to show you the fields that are required for that. Okay, so that's just your super users can let you know what additional fields they want you to fill out. All right, so please jump in and let me know if you have any additional questions about opening and closing cases. Again, I just got to it from the Cases Center by clicking Add New Case. So that should be pretty intuitive, but jump in and play around with it when you get your login information to see if you do have any questions. Okay. All right, so next, I would like to look at customizing your view. So what we're going to be working on now is making sure that you have the information you need readily available, okay? So there are 3 ways that we're going to do this. Number 1 is this drop down at the top. So I want you to notice right now I'm logged in as Will, and I am seeing cases that Will is involved in, activities that Will has done, and everything on Will's calendar. But let's say I need to know what's going on with the entire office. So now I'm going to change this to look at all staff and rooms. So now it's going to show me everybody's activities, all of the available cases, all of the office cases, as well as the entire office calendar. All right, so this is a great way for me to know, to just quickly get a pulse of what's going on for my entire office. But now, if I want to know what's going on with an individual mediator, perhaps I want to know how many cases they're working on, so I know if I should assign them another one, then I'm going to drop down to that mediator, to that volunteer's name, and then I can see their calendar and their case list. Another nice thing about this display is you can use it to look at all of your rooms, so you can see what rooms are available. Or if I want to quickly look at, let's say, Albany Mediation Room 2, and I want to see the availability of that and when it's booked, then by clicking on its name, it's going to filter my calendar. Does that make sense? So I'm using this display drop-down to filter for my people, but I can also use it to filter for rooms. So it's nice. You kind of got a 2-for-1 with that drop-down there. Again, let me know if you have any questions. What I'm just trying to show you now are some different ways that you can customize this screen and really make it work for you. So I'm going back to all staff and rooms now so I can see everything. And now I'm coming back down here to my Cases Center because I really want to customize my case list to make sure I'm seeing what I want in here, okay? So we already looked at Add New Case. I'm in the Cases hub now towards the right-hand side. Next, I'm going to filter, okay? So I'm going to click filter because I really want to only see my open cases. If I ever wanted to come back and reopen a closed case, get information about it, view it, include it in a report, whatever, then all it takes to look at closed cases is to come over here and click closed cases. If I want to see all of my cases, I click on all cases, all right? So it's very simple to come back and look at a closed or an archived case. But for the most part, I very strongly recommend just clicking open cases. 2 reasons. 1, it keeps your system moving a lot faster because then it doesn't have to continually load all this old information. But also then it helps you to move faster because you don't have to be wading through all of your closed cases. Instead, you just have a nice clean list in front of you of what you're currently working on. Okay? So display open cases. That's one of my big suggestions. Next, for filters, you can also use this to filter by date ranges. So let's say you want to look at all the new cases last quarter. Okay, so then you'd filter by cases opened. Let's say you want to, let's say you need to give a report on how many cases were closed last year. Great. So then you would filter your case closed by dates. Again, jump in if you have any questions about any of this. Coming down here for matching text search, let's say that you need to really quickly print out a summary on case number 10. Okay, so then I type in number 10, and then it will filter for that case number. Let's say that Jane Doe calls. Great, so then I'm going to type in her name, and all the Does in my system, all the related cases that have a Doe assigned to them, will be included in that filter. We have some more advanced filter options. Again, these are more for features that your system might use or might not use, such as billing, deadlines, etc. Referral source, that's a really nice one to filter on. So if you want to see all of your referrals from city court or from a family court judge, then you would just click on that referral source and it will only show you the cases that came in from there. Process is another nice one if you want to know how many cases you arbitrated last year. County, another great one, so that you can just see all the cases you have in a specific county. And again, what I'm trying to show you is that it's really simple to switch back and forth. So you can run a quick filter for all your Albany cases and then your Bronx cases, all right? So get very comfortable with using the filter because it's pretty robust. All right, so I hit set filter and I wanted to see all of my open cases. So we'll close this, give it a second to refresh. So there we go. Now my cases list is only showing me my open cases. And I can tell that because they're all white. The closed cases were showing up in kind of a grayish green. But Claire, you're saying there's another case in there that's red. Well, it's like a mauve, maybe a desert rose kind of a color. Okay. So that case is red-ish because, let's click on it and I'll show you, because somebody indicated that this case needs attention. So see up here in the upper left, next to that case closed toggle, this case needs attention. And let's say it's super urgent, needs attention now. And maybe let's write in the notes why. Here we go. Incident of domestic violence over weekend. Make sure parties are separated at mediation. Okay, something like that. So you'd indicate what the reason is that this case needs attention now. So the screen refreshes, and now everybody who's logged in looking at the system can see that this case has just flashed red. So there's something serious going on. Okay. So now so we've done 2 things so far to help you get the right view for this. Okay, so first we looked at display. Second, we looked at filtering so that we're only filtering the open cases or the types of cases I want to see. Third and finally, we are going to click on select fields. So that is selecting the fields that I'm looking at here and kind of customizing my dashboard, you could say. All right. So these are the fields that I'm talking about. Do you see these headers? ID, case name, status, etc. So those are the fields that I'm going to be customizing. So I get to decide what fields do I want to look at. And now this is on a personal basis. So other staff in your system get to personalize it for themselves, and you get to choose what fields do you really want to see when you first log in. Let's say that you want to know the case ID, status, what it's waiting on, the mediator involved, date initiated, case type, and probably case notes. And that's more important to you than the party information because you're not really the person that contacts the parties anyway. So you just really need to know the status of the case. Okay? So now you've customized that for yourself. And you can see that those fields have changed. And now what's nice is at a glance, I can also immediately see that case that needs attention now. I can read the notes to make sure that I schedule 2 conference rooms for that upcoming mediation because I know that the parties need to be separated. All right? So is all of this making sense so far? I'm going to assume yes, since I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, everybody's good? All right, and then I will point this out. What's nice about this is we've got these little toggle triangles, okay, these sorting up and down arrows next to the fields. So right now you can notice that it's sorted by case ID, okay? So it's going to show me my most recent cases first. But let's say I want to change that, and maybe I want to change it by case initiated. So I'm going to click on this triangle so that it's now going to show me, update, there we go. So it's going to show me my oldest open cases at the top, okay? Do you see that? So it's showing my case that was initiated on 6/28 before the rest of the cases. So it's very easy to customize the screen and play with the data so that you're seeing it just the way you want to, all right? So that's the main case customization stuff. So now the final thing I was going to show you is under Edit and Staff. So this is where we looked at a second ago for you to update your information. And now we're going to look at this in terms of a mediator panel. So let's say I wanted to use this to quickly know what mediators are available. So to do that, I'm going to, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Claire, can I interrupt? I'm sorry. Just one quick thing about, we just finished one thing, and I wasn't sure I wanted to share this, but I just want to jump right in and say, you know, that case list, if you could just minimize this one for a moment, Claire. You know, for both of your centers, you work in multiple counties. And, you know, I think typically the way you've all operated is that if you're in a county, you know, if you're in Albany or if you're in Orange County, you handle Orange County cases, or if you're in, you know, Putnam County, you pretty much only work on Putnam cases. What's nice about the system is you can have as many people in it at the same time. You won't need, you know, both of you have had very slow systems because you've had it out on a server, and it's been hard for multiple people to be in there at the same time. So the good news here is that you can have as many people in the system as you want, and you can see cases from all counties right at the same time. And so the advantage here for both of you is that this case list will become kind of like your dashboard. It'll be your to-do list. It'll be the way that you can find out what's happening with your cases, with other people's cases. Let's say someone's on vacation or out sick and you're covering for them. This will let you do that very easily. The other thing it'll let you do is to run, you know, kind of ad hoc queries. So in the past, you've had to kind of go into the back end of DRCMS, maybe or maybe not, that you might not be able to get there very easily. But let's say you get a request and you know, you're talking with Donna or you're talking with Sarah, and they're like, well, tell me about family court judge and, Jones and how many cases he's sent in the last 3 months. You could just set those filters the way Claire just showed you, and all of a sudden you have that list right there in front of you, and the number of cases and the exact cases that were referred by that judge during that period of time. It's a really great way to get information out of the system easily for those kind of ad hoc requests. We do have other reports that we're building into the system, and they should be there by the end of this month when you have data to pull out of it. But just wanted to kind of reinforce just how much of your time is probably going to be spent in this cases section.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so I'm going to hop up to Edit and Staff. And as Dan was saying, you will be spending, I'm assuming that you'll be spending most of your time down in the Cases Center. But if you do want to assign a mediator to a case, or you just want to see what's going on with your mediator panel, then this is a really easy way to quickly view your roster. So right now I'm seeing everyone, and all the rest of your mediators will be imported in here. So let's say that I just want to see my mediators. So I have a few options here for filters. I could look at people without any open cases. What I want to do is look at all of my volunteers. I could also look at people that are in a specific phase. I could filter by demographic information, languages, and county availability. Okay, so I've got lots of filter options. But right now, I just want to look at all my volunteers. So there's Vernon. There's our volunteer. But this still isn't quite getting me the information I want. So not filter. I'm going to click Select Fields. There we go. Because what I really want to know about Vernon are these confidential staff notes and where Vernon's at in the apprenticeship phase. Okay, so easy. I just update those fields, go back to my list, and there we go. So now here's all my information about Vernon, and obviously this would, I would be able to see this information for my entire mediator list. And then from here I could quickly filter and say, now out of this list, show me anyone who speaks Farsi, or show me who's available on a Tuesday evening. Does that make sense? So it should feel fairly comfortable to you to come in here and click and then see any notes that they have for you, as well as any confidential notes that the admins have made about this volunteer. Okay, so now I can click in here, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, I have additional information about Vernon. So I'm able to see what roles Vernon has taken in a case so far, and how often, as well as any cases that he's associated with. I can view all of his trainings, what volunteering he has done for the office, and any correspondence. So you'll notice it's really easy to send an email. So on the left here, there's his email address. So I just click Send Email, and then I can send him a personal email, I can send him a template, I can send him documents, whatever I need. And then whatever emails I sent, I'll see a quick summary of that correspondence over on the right-hand side. So it's a fairly complete mediator roster, including not just their information, but also their history and their experience.
So if I can, Claire, this is something we're really excited about, because we know that in the past year, CMS had this mediator module where you could track continuing education and you could track a bunch of information about the mediators, but it wasn't something that most centers used. I'd say certainly fewer than half used it. And we're hoping that more people add more information about their mediators. One, I think it'll be useful because, as Claire demonstrated, if you need to say, hey, I need to see who are my lemon law arbitrators in, Warren County, you can set that filter and it'll show you immediately who those people are. But likewise, you can store all the continuing ed stuff. So if you have people doing in-service trainings, you want to make sure you know who's on top of what. If you enter it through the system, not only will it show up on their record like this, we also have 2 pretty cool volunteer reports that we'll have in the system later this month that will give you either kind of like a snapshot of your entire panel, so you can see all your active mediators and say, okay, let's see who needs continuing education hours. Let's say it's November and you're worried that they're not going to maintain their certification, or who hasn't done enough casework, and you'll be able to, have that. Likewise, if a mediator ever comes up to you and says, hey, how many cases did I do this year? We have a 1-page report that you can summarizes all the work that mediators have done for whatever period of time you specify. So it'll list all their continuing ed, all their casework. So all of this really depends on you completing the information really pretty thoroughly. The last thing I'll say about this is right now your databases don't have the mediator information from DRCMS, and that will be imported next week. At some point, I'll reach out to your super user and let them know that that information is in there. You'll have to double check all of it, of course, but that's the point where you can start to take the records that you have and make them a little more complete. Are there any questions about the mediator piece of this? No questions? Okay. Thanks, Claire.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so we'll close out of here. So now we're back on the home screen. And so far what we've looked at today is we looked at how to go to edit and staff, update your information, as well as view mediator panels. We looked at how to add and close a case, and then to customize the screen. But let's assume that, heaven forbid, I didn't do an absolutely perfect job on training and you have a question. So your first line of defense, if you have a question, is to go over here to help. So that's in the top right, just underneath your name. You click on help and that takes you to the help center. Now, pretty much all of your questions should be outlined here under help topics, okay? All right, so as you're going through here, you can see that we have little screenshots. We've tried to explain it clearly. And so I hope that those are pretty helpful. If something isn't complete, if you think it's missing something, please let me know, no problem. But let's say that you have a specific New York question. Then you have your own unique hidden portal just for you. So that is available down here. So you scroll down, look over on the left-hand side, and this is your New York section. So as we begin to add more reports and we record and upload these trainings, those will all be available here, as well as questions that are specific for New York. And then this will take you to a form where you can send a note directly to me or to the customer service people. And what we'll probably be doing is checking with your super users, because that should really be your next line of questions is, gosh, how are we going to do this for our center? What's a specific workflow for us? And then if there are any questions beyond that, then I'll be working with your super users to make sure that we are customizing and configuring the training perfectly for your office, okay? So in sum, get in here, use the system, look at your personal information, try playing around and adding what information you want to. And then if you have any questions, click help or ask your super user, and then they'll get in touch with me if there are any bigger questions, okay? So that's really everything I wanted to cover today. Thank you so much for taking time this afternoon and going through it. I know that it's a big transition, but hopefully there will be some new features that you find are really working well for you.
Thanks so much, Claire. So, yeah, great. Go ahead. Sorry, what was the question? All right, I'm not hearing the question come through. So if there, you can use the chat, or does someone else have any questions here? Any quick responses or reactions to what you've seen? Maybe something that you're used to seeing in DRCMS that you're not seeing here. Anything at all? Any reactions to what you've seen so far today?
Hi, this is Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can, yeah.
No, I think it looks pretty good. I had a question, though, about when you enter in a case, does it automatically populate within the calendar? And is there a way to print out the calendar? And what actually shows on the calendar, I guess, is my question.
Okay, so the calendar, we haven't covered it today, but there's a special way to enter calendar items. So that could be sessions that you schedule for the future.
Okay.
And
so it doesn't automatically populate as you're entering a case?
No, because a calendar item is something particular that's going to happen, like scheduling a session, or maybe you're going to schedule domestic violence screening or something like that. So talk with Donna and talk with Nancy about that. Every center is going to use that feature in kind of slightly different ways. And essentially, you could use the calendar, for instance, to schedule some of your work so that you could kind of see, okay, what's on my schedule for today in terms of kind of a personal planner. So there's a lot of possibilities for using the calendar in interesting ways. But like Claire said at the beginning, the cool thing about the program is that there's multiple ways to do a lot of things, and we really want each center to kind of think carefully about what the best way is so that everyone's doing things consistently. Sorry, long answer. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. And there is a way to print it and display it, but let's see if we're going to use it first, and then we can show that to you.
Okay.
Thanks, Susan. Anyone else? Questions, reactions, observations, anything that's coming up for you? All right, quiet group this afternoon. I'll sign off by saying thank you for making the time to sit through this. I know it's hard to kind of watch all of this and try and take it all in. It's part of the reason why we kept this to an hour. The best thing is going to be connect with your super user, get your login, and take your direction from them in terms of how you're going to get practice. Because once you get some repetitions in the system, it'll seem pretty intuitive. I think at least that's been my experience. And just know that while you're making this change, we know it's hard to switch from one system to the other. Many of you have been on DRCMS for many years, so this is definitely a change, and know that we're here to kind of support you and your super user in making that change. So questions or concerns, just let us know. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing to make the transition happen smoothly. So thank you, everyone. And thanks to Claire for leading this today.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to meeting you a little better.
All right. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.